What happens when Hollywood royalty tries to silence the internet and it backfires spectacularly? In a shocking twist that's got both legal insiders and digital creators talking, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have unleashed a legal wave that's now sparking fierce backlash. From the outside, it may look like just another high-profile defamation case. But dig deeper and the story unravels into something much bigger. A legal showdown testing the limits of celebrity power in the digital age. After subpoenas were sent to independent YouTubers, small podcasters, and even critics with just a few dozen followers, questions exploded online. Was this standard legal procedure or a warning shot, a message to the public and the press to think twice before speaking out? Blake Lively's camp claims this isn't retaliation, but legal experts are sounding the alarm, saying this crosses a dangerous line. And now one lawyer has stepped forward not to support Lively but to call her out. In a sharp, no-holds-barred breakdown, the attorney exposes why these subpoenas might not just be aggressive, they could be deeply problematic. Are Blake and Ryan using the court system to hunt down critics under the guise of discovery? Or is there something even more strategic at play? This isn't just a lawsuit, it's a legal and moral battleground with ripple effects for everyone who speaks up online. Whether you're a fan, a follower, or just someone who values open conversation, this moment matters. Because if Hollywood's biggest names can come after the smallest voices without resistance, who's really safe? Let's break down what's happening and why the internet isn't backing down. The internet is absolutely buzzing, and not in the way Hollywood's favorite couple Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds might have hoped. Instead of charming audiences with red carpet appearances or their famously witty banter, the two now find themselves at the center of a rapidly unfolding legal storm. But this isn't about a leaked movie deal or an awkward interview clip. This is about power, public scrutiny, and the way celebrity influence clashes with digital free speech. It all started quietly. Just a few murmurs from small creators, YouTubers, and commentators with modest followings sharing that they had been served with subpoenas from Blake Lively's legal team. But when one of those subpoenas landed on the doorstep of a content creator with just a single subscriber, the situation instantly exploded. This was no longer just a legal matter, it became a cultural moment. Fans, lawyers, commentators, and free speech advocates across the internet asked the same questions. Was this about truth and justice, or was it something far more calculated? Was it a show of legal force? Was it retaliation, or perhaps a warning? To anyone thinking about speaking out against the Hollywood elite, the situation rapidly spiraled. Beyond the court documents and legal filings, what we're seeing now is the collision of two powerful forces: celebrity control of narrative and the unpredictable, decentralized, and viral nature of the creator economy. But before we jump to conclusions, let's trace the roots of this controversy. It all ties back to the simmering tension between Blake Lively and actor-director Justin Baldoni. Their legal dispute had already captured media attention, involving claims of defamation, professional betrayal, and significant damage to reputations. But as the case unfolded in courtrooms, the internet became its own battleground. Content creators across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter began dissecting court documents, drawing connections, and offering commentary. Some leaned pro-Blake, others defended Baldoni, but what united them all was the same goal: explaining this high-profile conflict to audiences hungry for the latest twists. And that's where things started to get messy. For Lively's legal team, the growing media narrative online was becoming a liability. The longer commentary videos racked up views, the more Blake's side seemed to lose control of the public perception. In traditional PR terms, it was a nightmare. In legal terms, it created a new dilemma: how do you counter misinformation, speculation, or potentially damaging narratives if they're coming from independent, often anonymous creators who aren't tied to any mainstream media ethics or regulation? Their solution: subpoenas. Official court-backed demands for information issued not to powerful media outlets or investigative journalists, but to small content creators, some of whom had fewer followers than a local pizza joint. One subpoena went viral immediately, not because of the creator's platform, but because of how tiny that platform was. Just one subscriber, 2 videos, and yet somehow a legal document landed at their door. The optics couldn't have been worse. Legal analysts and online personalities lit up the issue with 1,000 takes, but one stood out above the rest. A high-profile attorney known for offering blunt, practical legal commentary released a video that instantly caught fire. His take: "It's not retaliation in the legal sense," he said, "but if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, people will assume it is." In other words, Blake Lively's legal team might be operating within the bounds of law, but they're now walking a very fine line in the court of public opinion. And as any Hollywood figure knows, that's the court that matters just as much. According to this attorney, issuing subpoenas to small-scale commentators might technically fall under discovery, a process where parties gather evidence and testimony relevant to the case. But he was quick to point out the danger: just because you have the right to subpoena doesn't mean you should. Subpoenas are powerful tools, he explained, but they must be used responsibly. When you start targeting low-reach creators, especially those who may not even have first-hand knowledge of the case, the move risks being interpreted as intimidation. This concept, intimidation by process, has become a central theme in the unfolding backlash. While Blake Lively's legal team insists that the subpoenas are aimed at gathering facts and identifying the origin of leaked documents or misinformation, critics argue that the sheer number and seemingly indiscriminate nature of these subpoenas paint a different picture. If you're targeting someone with a few dozen views, is it really about relevance? Or is it about making an example and the internet isn't staying quiet about it? Major creators and free speech advocates have begun speaking out, warning of what they call a chilling effect on commentary. The idea is simple: if content creators believe that covering celebrity legal news could land them in court, many will simply stop talking. And when that happens, the balance of power shifts further toward those with the means to weaponize the legal system to their advantage. But that kind of imbalance isn't new in Hollywood. What is new is how quickly the internet pushes back. In the days following the subpoenas going public, several creators have banded together. Some are threatening to challenge the subpoenas in court. Others are crowdfunding legal fees and releasing videos titled things like "I got subpoenaed by Blake Lively," which ironically have now reached tens of thousands more viewers than their original commentary ever did. That's what legal experts call the Streisand effect, when an attempt to suppress or control information leads to far greater attention. But the drama doesn't stop there. Ryan Reynolds' involvement has now become another hot-button issue. Though not as vocal in court filings as his wife, his name does appear in certain documents, and that's raising questions about how deep his role in this strategy actually goes. For years, Reynolds has crafted a public image of being the approachable, self-deprecating, and media-savvy celebrity, a master of brand partnerships and likability. But in this situation, his silence is starting to become noticeable. Some commentators argue that Reynolds is merely a passive participant looped in legally because of his connection to Lively, but others speculate that his background in marketing and media may make him more involved in these decisions than we know. Either way, his decision not to publicly address the controversy is now beginning to attract criticism of its own. Silence equals consent is a phrase increasingly being used online. And when you're as famous as Ryan Reynolds, that silence can be deafening. So what happens now? Will Blake Lively's team double down and pursue these subpoenas through the courts, or will public pressure force a reevaluation of strategy? At the moment, the response from her legal team remains firm. They claim these subpoenas are crucial to understanding who may have leaked internal court documents and whether content creators knowingly used misleading or false information to shape narratives. But legal scholars warn that unless a creator has insider knowledge or was directly involved in leaking sensitive data, compelling them to testify or hand over private messages will be a tough sell to judges. Most commentary, even speculative or biased, is protected under free speech. And unless there's clear evidence that a creator crossed the line into defamation or obstruction, the courts may not look kindly on what's starting to appear like a dragnet approach. And in the meantime, the court of public opinion keeps turning. Every hour brings a new reaction, a new theory, a new video dissecting Blake and Ryan's choices. From late-night hosts to legal TikTokers, everyone's got a take, and the more pressure builds, the more likely it is that something will give. Whether that's a shift in legal tactics, a public statement, or a dramatic twist in the case itself, only time will tell. One thing's certain though, this is no longer just a celebrity lawsuit. This has become a cultural battleground over speech power and the limits of influence. And Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds may soon learn that in the age of social media, trying to control the story can sometimes mean losing control of it entirely. While the dust still hasn't settled from the initial outrage surrounding the subpoenas, the conversation has now shifted into far more serious territory. What started as shock and disbelief has evolved into a structured debate. Was this legally sound, ethically justified, and even if it was legal, did it cross a line in terms of public trust and perception? To begin answering those questions, we have to step back and understand how the legal process actually works, specifically the rules of discovery in civil litigation. In any civil case, discovery allows both sides to request information that may be relevant to the facts at issue. That can include emails, text messages, financial records, and even interviews or depositions with third parties who aren't directly involved in the case. It's not unusual for lawyers to cast a wide net, particularly in high-profile cases, where reputational damage is being alleged, and if there's reason to believe that someone, even a small player, might have received leaked documents or been part of circulating false claims, a subpoena might be issued to gather more information. But here's where the controversy deepens. Discovery is only supposed to be used when there's a clear good faith basis for believing someone possesses information directly relevant to the case. Critics argue that the way Blake Lively's legal team is deploying these subpoenas, especially to creators with such small platforms, does not pass that threshold. If a content creator simply commented on public documents or offered speculative analysis, they aren't automatically subject to legal intrusion. And unless there's evidence that they were in contact with parties inside the legal dispute or knowingly spread falsified information, subpoenas become far harder to justify. This is why the legal community is now sharply divided. On one side, some lawyers defend Blake Lively's team, arguing that in an age of mass digital dissemination, even small creators can trigger massive reputational harm. On the other side, seasoned attorneys are warning this tactic may cross into legally questionable territory bordering on abuse of process. And as public awareness grows, legal scholars are openly questioning whether this is a sign of desperation, a last-ditch effort to suppress narratives that cannot be controlled through PR alone. Meanwhile, content creators have begun pushing back with a unified voice. Several have released collaborative videos addressing the issue head-on with titles like "This is Bigger Than Us: Blake Lively's Legal Overreach and Free Speech Under Fire." Many of these creators had no prior collaboration histories, but the sense of being unfairly targeted has galvanized them. What's even more compelling is the demographic range of these voices, from conservative commentators to progressive analysts, from legal breakdown channels to gossip recappers. There's near universal agreement that the subpoenas set a dangerous precedent. That unity has turned what could have been an isolated legal move into a full-blown digital rebellion. As a result, coverage of the actual lawsuit between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has now taken a back seat to the broader implications of the subpoena wave. In other words, the legal tactic meant to tamp down narratives has now created an entirely new and more damaging narrative, one that has nothing to do with the merits of the case and everything to do with optics, intimidation, and the limits of celebrity control. Major legal creators like the LawTube Network, The Tilted Lawyer, and Legal Bites have weighed in with our long live streams, analyzing the subpoenas clause by clause. Their conclusion: while there's no hard evidence yet of intentional abuse, the widespread nature of the subpoenas suggests a coordinated strategy to identify, isolate, and potentially silence critics. That conclusion is extremely damaging from a PR standpoint, and no amount of lawyering can undo the reputational harm that comes from appearing to target everyday creators simply for talking. The irony here is staggering. Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have both carefully cultivated images of being grounded, relatable, and refreshingly candid compared to other Hollywood elites. Ryan in particular has built a multi-million-dollar branding empire on top of his quick wit and self-awareness. But this situation has started to erode that relatability. What was once seen as charm is now being reinterpreted by critics as manipulative image management, especially when paired with aggressive legal tactics. And for public figures who rely heavily on brand partnerships and fan goodwill, that shift in perception is far more damaging than any single lawsuit. And it's not just creators and fans who are paying attention. Industry insiders have begun whispering about the risk this poses to the couple's reputational capital. A few prominent publicists have even spoken anonymously to outlets, warning that if Blake and Ryan don't change course, or at the very least issue some kind of clarifying statement, they could face long-term damage to their public trust. As one PR strategist put it bluntly, this is not a scandal. This is a brand implosion in slow motion, and they don't seem to realize it yet. Adding fuel to the fire, another legal expert posted a viral video stating that while Blake Lively's team may think they're playing a high-stakes chess match, they're actually playing checkers on a digital minefield. In today's social media landscape, controlling the message is almost impossible. The more you try to suppress, the more oxygen you give to the very thing you're trying to bury. This is the Streisand effect in real time, and it's happening faster than her lawyers can manage. In another twist, several high-profile figures have begun quietly distancing themselves from the couple. Some mutual friends who previously gushed about their relationship on social media have noticeably gone silent. Even a few celebrity talk show hosts who previously featured Blake and Ryan in glowing interviews have made subtle references on air, hinting at their discomfort with how the subpoenas are playing out. Though no one has gone fully public with condemnation yet, the shift in tone is unmistakable. And in the absence of a clear response from the couple or their team's, speculation is starting to fill the void. Is Ryan staying silent because he disagrees with the legal strategy but can't publicly oppose it? Is Blake pushing forward because she genuinely believes these subpoenas are essential? Or is their entire legal and PR team simply misjudging the moment? All of this points to one undeniable fact: Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have lost control of the narrative. And in this hyper-connected media environment, regaining that control becomes exponentially harder the longer they wait. Every hour that goes by without a statement, every new video dissecting their legal choices, every tweet or thread criticizing their silence, it all builds momentum against them. What's more, this controversy has revealed something deeper about the evolving power dynamics in media. 10 years ago, celebrities could rely on their publicists and lawyers to shape the story. Today, the story belongs to the people. One TikTok clip, one legal reaction video, one piece of commentary from someone with barely a platform. That's all it takes to turn a private legal tactic into a public backlash. Blake and Ryan may have walked into this legal fight thinking it would be a controlled battle in a courtroom. What they didn't anticipate was the army of internet voices, legal minds, and creators ready to step in and question their every move. And as the controversy builds, one thing is becoming crystal clear: the rules of fame, influence, and control have changed. What was once about courtroom filings is now about ethics, narrative control, and the cultural temperature around celebrity power. Blake Lively's legal decisions have triggered a much bigger conversation, one that won't be resolved with a settlement or a press release. Because this isn't just about one lawsuit anymore, it's about whether celebrities can weaponize legal tools to protect their image, and what happens when the public decides that's not okay anymore. As public pressure continues to mount, media outlets have officially entered the fray, and they're not holding back. What was once an online creator controversy has now evolved into a mainstream news event, with headlines splashed across digital front pages calling attention to what some are describing as a celebrity overreach and a dangerous abuse of litigation. Prominent platforms such as Variety, The Hollywood Reporter, and even the New York Times have begun to explore the implications of the subpoenas issued by Blake Lively's legal team. The overwhelming tone alarmed, curious, and in some cases, downright critical. The story has gained traction not because of the lawsuit itself, though the original conflict between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni remains important, but because of what these legal maneuvers suggest about celebrity power. One editor at a major publication summed it up this way: celebrities aren't just defending themselves in court anymore, they're going after their critics. That changes everything. The media isn't simply echoing creator sentiment, it's amplifying it, giving legitimacy to concerns that just a few weeks ago may have been dismissed as internet drama. And now, with the press involved, there's a new layer of scrutiny on the consequences of these subpoenas. Publicists, talent agents, and marketing teams are suddenly asking, what is the actual cost of pursuing content creators in court? Not just the financial cost, though that is significant, but the brand damage, the fan backlash, and the risk of appearing out of touch in an era that increasingly favors transparency and accountability. The consequences are already becoming visible. Multiple brand campaigns featuring Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have quietly gone dark. A few sponsored posts that were scheduled to go live have been delayed indefinitely, while no brand has made a public statement distancing itself from the couple. The behind-the-scenes hesitation is telling. These companies are watching closely, weighing whether association with this controversy is worth the potential fallout. Because while Blake and Ryan are undeniably marketable, their public image, once their greatest asset, is now under threat. This media shift has also emboldened content creators. With journalists echoing their concerns, creators now feel more confident speaking out. And many are doing so not with fear but with defiance. Some have begun producing multi-part breakdowns of the subpoenas themselves, analyzing the language used, the scope of the requests, and the lack of clear evidence cited in certain cases. Others have posted reaction videos, expressing their disbelief at being pulled into a high-profile lawsuit for simply offering commentary on public documents. And in a move that surprised even legal analysts, a few creators have retained lawyers of their own, not just for defense but to consider filing motions to quash the subpoenas, or in some cases countersuits alleging harassment or misuse of the court system. Legal reaction videos have gone viral explaining how discovery can be challenged and how creators can protect their First Amendment rights when facing questionable legal pressure. A new wave of creators is now educating their audiences on the importance of understanding fair use, commentary protection, and legal boundaries in the digital age. This is where the story becomes even more fascinating, because what Blake Lively's legal team may have underestimated is just how organized and intelligent the creator community has become. These aren't amateurs operating in isolation. Many of them have built platforms through diligent research, storytelling, and deep understanding of media law. Some are even lawyers themselves, and they're not afraid to push back. What began as a group of individuals covering a celebrity lawsuit has now become a collective force, demanding fairness, transparency, and accountability from Hollywood elites. It's not about picking sides anymore, it's about standing up for the right to speak, to question, and to comment without fear of being dragged into a courtroom for doing so. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's legal team remains largely silent. Their only public comment has been a brief statement reiterating their intent to identify the source of leaked or misrepresented court materials, but even that has done little to quell the backlash. In fact, it may have made things worse. Legal experts were quick to point out that such a vague rationale does not justify targeting individuals who are merely interpreting public records or discussing public figures. That silence is being interpreted as a refusal to engage with the broader concerns. And for a couple so known for their engagement, whether in interviews on social media or through charitable campaigns, this sudden wall of silence is off-brand. It raises questions about whether they underestimated the blowback, or if they've been advised to stay quiet in hopes that the news cycle will move on. But the problem with that strategy is that the internet doesn't forget. Every new update, every creator's legal response, every late-night show joke, it all becomes part of a permanent archive. This isn't a scandal that gets buried after a week. It's a reputational thread that now links Blake and Ryan to a much larger conversation about censorship, power, and platform responsibility. Even within Hollywood, the whispers are growing louder. Some insiders are privately expressing concern that Blake Lively's aggressive legal approach could complicate future partnerships. Directors and producers who value creative freedom may be hesitant to work with someone perceived as controlling or overly litigious. Meanwhile, brands that cater to younger, digital-savvy audiences are becoming increasingly nervous about tying themselves to what they now see as an outdated approach to crisis management. This isn't just about a single legal action anymore. It's about the perception of how celebrities interact with a new kind of media, one where everyone is a potential broadcaster, and influence doesn't come from a press release, but from the ability to relate to real people. When celebrities start acting like institutions, deploying legal teams like corporate enforcers, the cultural response is swift and often unforgiving. And yet, amid all the fallout, the original question remains: was this retaliation? The lawyer who originally went viral with his "it's not retaliation, but it sure looks like it" line has now doubled down. In a follow-up interview, he explained that public perception matters just as much as legal intent. Even if the motive is pure, he said, the execution is messy. And in the court of public opinion, perception is reality. Creators, commentators, fans, and legal minds now find themselves united around a single concern. What's next? Will more subpoenas be issued? Will any creators actually be compelled to appear in court? Will judges push back against what many are calling an overly aggressive strategy? And most importantly, will Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds take accountability or double down? The next steps in this unfolding saga will shape not just their case, but the future of how celebrity legal power interacts with internet culture. In the meantime, every post, every video, every thread is now a piece of evidence, not in a courtroom, but in the larger cultural reckoning that Blake and Ryan may have unintentionally triggered. As the dust continues to swirl around the legal spectacle surrounding Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, one thing is becoming increasingly clear: the stakes are far higher than simple public image management. This is no longer just a celebrity spat or a defamation case unfolding behind closed courtroom doors. It's a spotlight on how public figures navigate the fragile line between defending their reputations and potentially intimidating their critics. The decision to subpoena YouTubers, journalists, and even online commentators has sparked a fierce conversation about accountability, fair use, and the chilling effects of celebrity legal firepower on independent voices. But while Lively's team insists these legal actions are routine discovery procedures, not retaliation, legal experts and media analysts aren't so sure. From a PR standpoint, the optics aren't great. To many observers, it appears like a move designed to control narrative rather than seek truth. The fact that attorneys and analysts are stepping forward to push back on the idea that these subpoenas are normal suggests the public isn't buying the official spin. People are demanding transparency, fairness, and protection for freedom of expression, even when it challenges the powerful. This isn't just about one lawsuit anymore. It's about what it means when public figures use private litigation to reach into the public discourse. Are we witnessing the growing pains of a legal system trying to keep pace with digital media? Or are we seeing a strategic playbook being executed in real time? To chill dissent either way, this case may ultimately be remembered less for its verdict and more for what it revealed: a clash between celebrity influence and legal ethics, between storytelling and silencing, and a community of creators who aren't backing down, because sometimes the real battle isn't just in the courtroom, it's in the court of public opinion.